Hello everyone and welcome back. So sorry this part 2 is taking a little bit longer than I expected to film, but here it is. Again, just a disclaimer, sorry if I pronounced any names or any cities wrong. I don't mean offense, I just can't pronounce certain words. But I want to say a massive thank you. I hit 200 subscribers and I'm so thrilled. I'm so happy. I have got a few videos lined up. I'm definitely gonna do the Q&A, so don't worry, I will get that done. I'm working on that just now. And I also have a few other kind of hauls and stuff that I want to do, and just crazy cases and unsolved mysteries that I want to cover. Please stay tuned and make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notifications when I post and you'll never miss a video. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Obviously, I forgot to mention the most important part. Please go watch part 1 if you haven't already. I talk about Cary Stayner and his past a lot more, so if you haven't watched that, you might not really understand his childhood and what really formed him to become the person he was. So please give it a watch. It will be in the comments and it will also be in the description, and obviously it's on my channel. Who was Cary Stayner? He was born on August 13th, 1961 in Merced, California. Merced is in the shadows of Yosemite National Park. Merced was quite a secluded farming town. The Stayner family is made up of 2 brothers, Cary being the oldest, and 3 sisters, and the parents, Kay and Dilbert. The mom, Kay, was quite a distant mother who was known to be quite reserved. At the mere age of 3, he was diagnosed with trichotillomania, an obsessive-compulsive hair pulling, and was put on medication, though the condition stuck with him even during his high school years. The consequential bald spots led him to being bullied. When he was 7, he started having violent fantasies about abducting and killing women. When Cary was 11, his younger brother Stephen was kidnapped by the infamous child molester Kenneth Parnell in 1972 and was held captive for more than 7 years before escaping and being reunited with his family. However, sadly, Stephen, his brother, was killed in a motorcycle accident while driving home from work. Stayner would later say that he felt neglected while his parents grieved over Stephen's death. He was placed in gifted classes in school, and he started having fantasies about women being gang raped before he was even a teenager. When Cary was around 29, a year later, another tragic death in Cary's life was Cary's uncle. He was shot and killed in the home that they shared. Cary was very close with his uncle. However, he later stated that he had been molested by his uncle Jesse Stayner at the age of 11. The murder was never solved. After his uncle's murder, Cary's rage was starting to bubble up. Stephen and his uncle were gone, but in a sense, so was Cary. Cary had no direction in his life. In 1991, a year after his uncle passed away, he tried to gas himself to death with carbon monoxide. Stayner had a couple of nervous breakdowns, and one was fairly violent. He stated he felt like jumping in a truck and driving it through the shop where he worked and killing the boss and killing everyone in the office, and then torching the place. He told his friend this. His friend told him he needed to go see a doctor. In 1995, he was admitted to a mental institution after his nervous breakdown. However, it wasn't sure if he was released after receiving treatment or if he just left. Then, in 1997, he was arrested for the possession of marijuana and methamphetamine, although the charges were eventually dropped. During all of this, Cary was having these dreams and these fantasies about killing women. Stayner would travel up to Yosemite and get high. He started going to this area known as Florista and developed this deep obsession with Bigfoot. He thought he saw him one night. Stayner would talk to anybody that would give him the time or day and listen to his stories about Bigfoot. Stayner ended up taking refuge in the place that he loved the most, and that was Yosemite. In the fall of '97, he drove to the tiny town of El Portal, which is the doorstep to Yosemite National Park. By this time, Stayner's in his 30s, and he lands a job as a handyman at the Cedar Lodge. Maybe it's just me that finds this a bit strange, but his brother's kidnapper used to work 33 minutes down the road and kept his brother in a cabin around the same area. A place where Stephen must have been so scared and confused was in the same place that brought Stayner so much comfort, and he loved the Yosemite. By February 1999, Cary had been at the Cedar Lodge for about 2 years. The winters were very desolate. Not a lot of tourists visited the park at that time. However, among the small group of people who did come to the Cedar Lodge were Carol's son, her 15-year-old daughter Julie, and her 16-year-old friend Sylvina HELLOOO. The three of them were on a trip to look at colleges and also to enjoy Yosemite. They had rented a red Pontiac for this trip, and it was an opportunity for them to show Sylvina, who was visiting from Argentina, the pretty views and areas of Yosemite. They spent the day touring the park and doing a lot of the highlights. They also went ice skating. That night, most of the other guests had actually gone home, and their room was about as far as you can get from the lobby in the restaurant in a dark corner. They had dinner at the restaurant and then went to the front desk and got a movie. They were going to go watch it back in their room. He decides that he is going to kill them and act upon his strong fantasy that he has created in his mind. Cary initially wanted to kill another family. He saw a family in 1998 whilst they stayed at Cedar Lodge, as their mom was working there. Cary gave the girls loads of Beanie Babies and attention. However, he actually confessed that there was 3 separate times he had planned to kill and rape the 2 girls and their mom. On that night, 15th of February 1999, he persuaded Carol's son to let him into their room to fix a leak. Once in the room, Stayner pulled a gun on the tourists and bound and gagged them. He led the girls into the bathroom. He then strangled Carol and dumped her body in the trunk of her car. Then he brought the girls back into the room, cut off their clothes, and sexually assaulted them. Sylvina began crying. He took her into the bathroom and strangled her. He killed Carol and Sylvina on the 15th, and then Julie on the 16th. For hours, he sexually assaulted Julie, and then loaded her into the car and drove her to Lake Don Pedro, where he slit her throat. Afterward, he put Carol and Sylvina's bodies in the car that they rented and torched the vehicle. At first, absence was treated as a disappearance, but as weeks went by, the authorities began to suspect that they might have been murdered. Sadly, their suspicions were confirmed a month after their abductions when a pair of hikers found a burnt-out car. Police investigated the burnt-out Pontiac. They contained the bodies of Carol and Sylvina. Though the bodies and car were burned beyond recognition, the investigators managed to identify them through dental records. Near the car, there were items scattered: a shoe, the car keys, and CDs. The greatest discovery, along with the scattered items, was the camera. The investigators looked through and soon realized who it was and who it belonged to. A week later, Julie's body was found as well, after the authorities received a note sent by Stayner that showed its location where Julie's body was found. 5 months passed without another killing, and the community surrounding Yosemite was lulled into a sense of calm, especially when the FBI announced that those believed responsible for the murders were in custody. However, the wrong men were actually in custody. Men arrested had a violent history and had a previous record. The FBI even interviewed Stayner. He did not give off any suspicions that it could be him. Stayner was very calm and collected. He mentioned his brother, Stephen, and how he can understand the victim's family's pain. On July 21st, 1999, when Stayner saw Joey Armstrong, a 26-year-old naturalist at Yosemite who taught children about nature, something instantly changed with him, he said. He said he was ready to kill again. He knew she was alone after watching her. This was the first night she had been alone in her cabin since moving in. She shared it with her friend and her boyfriend. She did tell her friends that she was scared but had to get over her fears of staying alone. Stayner confronted her at her home. Armstrong fought wildly for several minutes against her 6'1", 200-pound attacker. She tried to get away, and she almost did. Armstrong created enough confusion and ruckus that Stayner was forced to hurriedly dispose of her. In his hassle, he left behind footprints and distinctive tracks of his baby blue International Scout, a well-worn vehicle that bore a different brand of tire on every wheel. It was those unique tracks that allowed investigators to hunt Stayner and crack a case that had confounded them for months. After her friends reported her missing, police found those signs of struggle at her cabin, and half a mile away, they found her beheaded body in a nearby stream. Later on, her head was found several feet away in the water. Police initially started searching for him because his vehicle had been seen near her place, and they thought he would just be a witness. In July 1999, FBI investigators found Stayner by a riverbank near the car that another park employee had identified as being at Armstrong's the night she had been murdered. Then they find that the tire marks are actually a match from this crime scene. When police went to arrest Stayner just a few days later, he was eating lunch at a nudist colony near Sacramento. A day earlier, they had seized his backpack and searched his truck and his apartment. When Stayner was brought in for questioning, he surprisingly confessed to the murders. He also admitted to killing Carol and Julie and Sylvina, however denied that any sexual abuse happened. Stayner told authorities that he cleaned the crime scene to make sure not to leave any incriminating evidence, and he learned how to do this by watching Discovery Channel. In 2000, a mental health test conducted on Stayner showed that he had brain abnormalities, and it was consistent with schizophrenia, psychotic disorder, and obsessive-compulsive disorders. However, prosecution argued against the scans. Stayner wanted a movie made about him. He said because there was a movie about his brother, Stayner should get the same treatment, and he wanted the world to take note. In court, Stayner pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. In 2002, Stayner was sentenced to death. Today, he is on death row at San Quentin Penitentiary in California. However, there have been no executions in the state of California since 2006. Possible other crimes. FBI agents have asked Stayner about the 1994 killing of 23-year-old Sherilyn Murphy, a prostitute whose body was found with no head or no hands. In El Dorado County, detectives are wondering if Stayner might be responsible for the 1992 decapitation murder of 19-year-old Veronica Martinez, a Sacramento waitress. In another county, detectives are looking at Stayner in connection with a stabbing murder of a woman whose body was torched in a barrel in 1994 at the same lake where Julie Sund was killed. They also reinvestigated Jesse Stayner's murder, who was Stayner's uncle. However, they could not find any connection that Stayner could have done this. The case still remains unsolved. That concludes today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know how it did in the comments.